Chapter 71. 71. Congratulations to Mr. Gu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71. Congratulations to Mr. Gu. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Elder son smiled. I went to Luo City to look for someone. When I was eating just now, I heard that someone fainted upstairs, so I came up to take a look. They were in an ordinary private room downstairs. When they received the news, Lu Miao had already gone over. He had thought that this little girl was just being helpful and did not know any professional first aid knowledge. He watched from behind and realized that every step she took was the best plan at the moment. There were many people outside, so Gu Shiyan invited them into their private room. Elder son looked at Lu Miao with admiration. Mr. Gu, this is. Gu Shiyan turned to look at Lu Miao with a smile in his eyes. My little friend. It was no secret that Gu Shiyan was recently engaged. Elder son smiled. Mr. Gu is so lucky to be calm, decisive, and calm when faced with problems. Then, he turned to Lu Miao. Where did you learn your medical skills? With the rapid rise of Western medicine, Chinese medicine was declining. There were fewer people who learned it, and there were even fewer people who knew the knowledge of these acupoints. Lu Miao stopped what she was doing. She looked at elder son and replied with a straight face, I don't know any medical skills, and I've never learned them. It was just that when I was in the countryside, a neighbor had suffered from the same illness. The doctor in the village did the same. Gu Shiyan looked at her, his fingertips tapping lightly on the table unconsciously. Elder son nodded and didn't think too much about it. I see that you're fast and accurate. You've great potential to study medicine. Do you have any thoughts of coming to my research institute to study medicine? The young man who had been following elder son was shocked. It seemed that elder son was thinking of taking in a disciple. There were countless graduate students and PhD students in the research institute, and they were all working as assistants. He had followed elder son for 8 years in the research institute before he was finally accepted as a disciple. This was the first time he had met this little girl. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Sunday. I'm still in my 3rd year of high school, so I don't have such thoughts for the time being. Lu Miao replied politely. When elder son heard this, he did not force her. He chuckled and said, yes, it's indeed still young. There's no rush. You can take your time to think about it. After chatting, elder son turned to look at Gu Shiyan. Mr. Gu, I came to Luo City this time because I really need your help. I didn't expect to meet you here before I even came to visit. Elder son, if you need my help, feel free to ask. Gu Shiyan said directly. There's a pharmacy near Luo City's Chinese medicine market. The owner is a family member of one of my students. A while ago, a customer came to the shop with an extremely precious prescription. The boss originally wanted to buy it directly, but the customer refused to sell it. He also rejected the cooperation proposal and did not leave any contact information. I want to ask Mr. Gu to help me find this customer. Old son said sincerely. Gu Shiyan reached out to pick up the tea at the side and poured 2 cups. He placed 1 cup in front of elder son and the other cup in front of Lu Miao. Got it. I'll get someone to investigate when I get back. Lu Miao, who was eating quietly, lowered her eyes and took a sip of tea. Chinese medicine market. A prescription. It sounded familiar. Tang Machen's eyes were sore from Gu Shiyan's effective acts toward Lu Miao. Gu Shiyan was completely different in front of her. To think that he had even gone to fight with Fu Jingshan for him, but this guy didn't even pour him a glass of water. On the other side, Gu Shiyan chatted with elder son for a while. Elder son asked about Gu Shiyan's physical condition and reached out to check his pulse. However, the more he felt the pulse, the tighter his frown became. Strange, Gu Shiyan subconsciously looked at Lu Miao beside him. Your pulse, Elder Sun's face was filled with confusion and a trace of undetectable fear flashed across his face. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't think of a suitable word to describe it. He could only look at Gu Shiyan solemnly. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? His reaction made even Tang Machin, who was crazily ridiculing Gu Shiyan, look nervously. No, I haven't. Hearing Gu Shiyan's answer, the confusion on Elder Sun's face became even stronger. He thought for a moment. Then have you met any experts recently? Gu Shiyan retracted his arm and tidied up his sleeves. He subconsciously glanced at Lu Miao beside her. He saw her sitting there unmoving like a mountain, hugging her small bowl and concentrating on eating. It seemed that his little friend was really starving. Elder Sun nodded thoughtfully. I wonder if Mr. Gu can arrange for this old man to meet this expert. Gu Shiyan reached out to take the chopsticks and a clean bowl. As he picked up some food, he said, I'm sorry, Elder Sunday. I'm afraid I can't. This expert hasn't appeared in public yet. Everything is just from the internet. I've never seen him before. He pushed the bowl of food in front of Lu Miao. Lu Miao knew who it was without even raising her head. She did not stand on ceremony with him and just focused on the food in front of her. It was as if the people and things they were talking about had nothing to do with her. Elder Sun said regretfully, it's really a pity that we can't meet such an expert. However, since there was an expert in charge, he must have found a solution. Congratulations, Mr. Gu. A few months ago, when Shen Qinghe came looking for him, Gu Shiyan's condition was already very bad. But at that time, at least he could feel something from his pulse. However, when he took Gu Shiyan's pulse just now, he actually realized that Gu Shiyan's pulse was like stagnant water and had completely disappeared. Physiologically speaking, as long as a person was alive, there would definitely be blood flow and a pulse. To put it nicely, Gu Shiyan's pulse had disappeared. To put it bluntly, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was the pulse of a dead person. There was no way to explain it, be it from a physiological or medical perspective. However, Gu Shiyan's situation could not be explained with common sense. If he had met some expert, it would make sense. Seeing that he had no intention of explaining further, he did not continue asking. After the meal, the group of people came out of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. After sending Elder Sun into the car, Gu Shiyan turned around and opened the car door, letting Lu Miao get in first. Tang Machin was about to get into the car when Gu Shiyan slammed the door. I'll send her home. You can take a taxi back. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and said, go to the Chinese medicine market and check on the person that old Master Sun mentioned just now. After saying that, he went to the other side and got into the car, leaving with Lu Miao. He ruthlessly left Tang Machin standing in place, eating a mouthful of car exhaust. At this moment, Tang Machin only wanted to sing a song to console himself. He should be under the car and not in it. Chapter 72. 72, Pampering Lu Miao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 72. Pampering Lu Miao. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. It was already night time when she returned to the Gu residence. Gu Jinsi and Gu Ziheng were watching television with Shen Qinghe in the living room. Seeing the two of them return together, Shen Qinghe was so happy that she could not close her mouth. She hurriedly called Lu Miao to sit beside her. She did not know where the two of them had gone on a date in private. She only hated that time had passed too slowly and that Lu Miao was too young. Otherwise, it wouldn't be long before she could have a grandson. Gu Jinsi eagerly gave up his seat to Lu Miao and even took the initiative to tell her about his studies at home for the day. The living room soon became lively. At the side, Gu Ziheng hesitated for a moment before saying, Mom, it's rare for second brother to come back. Let Xingyu come out and reunite with us. The atmosphere instantly fell silent. Shen Qinghe paused and said directly, she made a mistake and should be punished. She would come out when she admitted her mistake, but she's still injured. Can't we wait until she recovers before slowly reflecting on her actions? Gu Ziheng was anxious. Gu Jinsi, who was beside her, snorted. Sure, get her to apologize to second sister. In law immediately. When Gu Ziheng heard this, he glared at him angrily. Gu Jinsi, Xingyu is injured. Are you really going to watch as her condition becomes so serious until she's hospitalized? He also wanted Gu Xingyu to apologize, but his sister had been spoiled for too long and was as stubborn as a donkey. He really couldn't do anything to her at the moment, so he could only plead for her first. Ha, she deserved it. Gu Jinsi snorted coldly. Enough, you two stop arguing. Shen Qinghe interrupted their argument and reached for an orange on the coffee table and handed it to Lu Miao. Auntie Xiao went to the orchard to pick these oranges today. They're very fresh. Gu Ziheng could only turn his head to Gu Shiyan for help. Second brother, Xingyu has already been punished. Can you let her out of the ancestral hall first? I'll persuade her afterwards. He had gone to the ancestral hall to visit Gu Xingyu during dinner. The injury on her hand was still swollen and she could not eat. In just 2 short days, she was so haggard that her face had become thinner. Let her stay in the ancestral hall. Gu Shiyan did not look up, his voice cold. He reached out and took the orange from Lu Miao's hand, peeled it carefully, removing even the white pith from the orange segments. After making it clean and neat, he handed it back to Lu Miao. There were many branches in the Gu family. When their father passed away that year, Gu Shiyan was only 16 years old. Gu Ziheng and Gu Jinsi were even younger. In addition, her eldest brother, Gu Jingxi, had left home long ago and had not returned for so many years. Shen Qinghe also had no experience in managing a company. Gu Shiyan had to face the watchful eyes of other branches, while at home, he had to take care of everyone. The vast Gu family relied solely on Gu Shiyan to hold it together. The huge Gu corporation and family were all supported by Gu Shiyan alone. Therefore, in the eyes of Gu Ziheng and his younger siblings, Gu Shiyan was like an elder in the Gu family. His words were often more authoritative than Shen Qinghe's. If he said no, it meant that there was no room for discussion. Unless. Gu Ziheng subconsciously looked up at Lu Miao. At this moment, she was sitting quietly. In the entire Gu family, the only person who could change the situation and save Xingyu from the ancestral hall was her. However, when he thought of his conversation with Lu Miao in the morning, he did not have the face to beg her. Seeing the lively scene of their family reunion in the living room, Gu Ziheng had to lower his head and go see Gu Xingyu on his own. Shen Qinghe smiled and squeezed Lu Miao's hand. She deliberately explained, "Don't think too much. I punished Xingyu not only because of this incident. She has been spoiled by the family for too long and has completely lost her sense of propriety. She doesn't even understand the most basic rules and manners. This time, she was lucky that you and Professor Wen didn't hold her accountable. But what if it were someone else? At that time, it would not be a matter of getting slapped. No one would tolerate her unconditionally like her family. She could be considered to have used this incident to teach Gu Xingyu a good lesson." Lu Miao nodded. She was not that saintly and did not plan to plead for Gu Xingyu. Gu Jinsi was now a complete fan of Lu Miao's. He asked about her well-being, poured her tea, and peeled apples. He wished he could follow her all the time. Gu Shiyan looked at the person standing between him and Lu Miao. For the first time, he felt that his younger brother was so annoying. He had promised to accompany Lu Miao the next morning, so it was a rare occasion for Gu Shiyan to have a restful night at home. The next morning, after Lu Miao went downstairs to have breakfast with them, they left the house together. When they arrived at the school gate, just as Lu Miao was about to step off the car, Gu Shiyan reached out and took her backpack directly from her hands. He insisted on personally escorting her to the classroom, not just stopping at the school gate. His handsome appearance was already eye-catching, and his long, straight legs were simply extraordinary. Under his tailor-made suit, his broad shoulders, narrow waist, and long legs were perfectly accentuated. Among the students in school uniforms, he was extremely eye-catching. His every move was elegant and noble. The male students who were usually regarded as the most attractive in the school, the so-called school grass and heartthrob, looked like little gray dogs compared to him. The girls who passed by felt as if there were 1,000 shrieking chickens in their hearts. F***ck, what is someone else's boyfriend? This is more like it. While they were still struggling to study for the college entrance examination and didn't know where their future boyfriend was, Lu Miao had already reached the peak of her life. The main point was that not only was he rich and handsome, but he was also attentive and doted on Lu Miao. He even had to carry her school bag for her. This was simply a winner in life. It was not until they reached the classroom and Lu Miao sat in her seat that Gu Shiyan placed the bag that he had been carrying all the way on her desk. He bent over considerately and looked at her. "I'll pick you up in the afternoon. Remember to call me anytime if there's anything." Lu Miao held her forehead. She thought of Gu Shiyan's reaction when he heard Shen Muhan scold him for abusing her on the phone yesterday. Was he trying to prove to Shen Muhan that he did not abuse her? Was this necessary? She couldn't believe it. Gu Er.Ye, who held great influence in both the political and business world and wouldn't even blink in front of the president, had such a childish side. Gu Shiyan chuckled and turned around to leave. Su Mo was so excited that she immediately rushed to Lu Miao. D*Mn, boss, the legendary Mr. Gu personally sent you to the classroom and even helped you carry your school bag like a lackey. This is too cool. Chapter 73. 73, I'm here to challenge you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73. I'm here to challenge you. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. I had only seen his photos in financial magazines before, and he was already outrageously handsome. But in person, he's even more handsome, more gentle, and more considerate. Whoever said that Mr. Gu is heartless, ruthless, and malicious, I want to gouge out their eyes. I think you should gouge out your own eyes instead. That cunning and hypocritical guy never even provides our boss with a car or a driver, making him ride a bike to school every day. Now he's pretending to be a good man. What a hypocrite. Shen Muheo sneered. PFF, I think you're just jealous that Mr. Gu is more handsome, richer, and more capable than you. Su Mo had a sharp tongue. Shen Muhan was no match for her. Lu Miao felt a headache coming on. She bent her fingers and tapped the table lightly. Su Mo, are you planning to abandon your idol and become a fan of another? Of course not. Su Mo pursed her lips and sat down beside her. No matter how good Mr. Gu is, he's still your future husband. Shen Ziheng is my husband. Probably because he did not want to expose his identity, Gu Ziheng entered the entertainment industry with Shen Qinghe's surname, Shen Ziheng. He did not even have a manager now. Other than the assistant arranged by Gu Shiyan, everyone in the industry thought that he was just a poor kid with no background. No one knew his true identity. Poor my husband, in the prime of his youth, his voice was ruined. If I ever catch the person who harmed him from behind, I will be at odds with them. Even if it costs me my life, I will avenge my husband. Su Mo gritted her teeth, her face filled with both anger and heartache. After class, they were about to go to the cafeteria for lunch. They looked up and saw an unfamiliar figure standing at the door of the classroom. Shen Muhan was eager to protect his boss and jumped out immediately. He asked warily, "Who are you? What do you want? If you're Lu Miao, come forward. If not, stop talking nonsense." The person displayed an arrogant and disdainful attitude from head to toe. Shen Muheo's explosive temper erupted instantly. You're the one talking nonsense. Your whole family talks nonsense. He rolled up his sleeves and was ready to charge forward to fight. Shen Muhan. Lu Miao called out lazily from behind. She was a little hungry now and just wanted to go to the restaurant to eat. The boy looked in the direction of the voice and saw that Shen Muhan had quieted down after hearing her words. The people around her also started to treat her as the center of attention. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Lu Miao. You must be Lu Miao, yes. Lu Miao replied casually. The boy looked her up and down carefully. Then, he said, I heard that you're a one-century genius. You can invent several advanced mathematics formulas just by doing a random question. No, it's all fake. They're talking nonsense. Lu Miao said straightforwardly. She just wanted to get rid of this person as soon as possible and then rush to the restaurant. If she went there any later, her favorite lychee meat would be gone. The boy instantly became angry upon hearing her words. What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? Absolutely not, Lu Miao said earnestly, her eyes practically begging to be excused so she could go eat. The boy snorted and then spoke, you don't even dare to challenge me. I heard you didn't participate in the Triwizard tournament. Seeing that he had no intention of stepping aside, Lu Miao could only say, yes, only the outstanding students of the experimental class can participate. I'm just an ordinary student, so I'm not qualified. If there's nothing else, please move aside. The boy sneered sarcastically and raised his chin arrogantly. What nonsense about outstanding students from the experimental class. They're all just a bunch of brain-dead nerds who only know how to study and bury their heads in books. As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows at Lu Miao and reached out his hand. You're the only one in Jinhai High School who can barely be considered outstanding. I'm Huang Zihao, a third-year student from Fengcheng Noel High School. I received an invitation to the World Brainpower Championship last month. I'm willing to follow my teacher to participate in this lousy competition, not for the qualifications of Qingbei University, which is not even ranked in the world, nor to meet those trash from your school. I'm here to challenge you. Recently, Lu Miao's invention of advanced mathematical formulas and her special prize in the International Mathematical Olympiad garnered widespread media attention. Young geniuses, future pillars of the country, all kinds of flattering words. As the genius that everyone had been talking about since he was young, he naturally did not believe it and was not convinced. Lu Miao then remembered that today was the day of the Triwizard tournament. The other two schools had probably just arrived. When the students in the class heard this, their expressions instantly turned ugly. Although they had disputes and mutual disdain with the experimental class on a regular basis, their disdain was an internal matter within their own school, and it was not the place for students from other schools to insult them. Even Su Mo, who usually had a good temper, now had an incredibly unpleasant expression. Shen Muhan's anger was ignited again. I think you're the garbage, and you're the harmful garbage that can't be recycled. What's so great about participating in the World Brainpower Championship? How dare you look down on our country's university? You brainless thing who kneels down to suck up to foreign countries. If my boss wants to participate in that stupid competition, I don't think you would even receive the invitation. You're just a big fish in a small pond. You're full of yourself, but you have nothing to show for it. How dare you challenge my boss? You're not even worth a dime, let alone 10 keys, Shen Muhan kept cursing without stopping. He didn't even have a chance to interrupt. Huang Zihao's face darkened. Lu Miao, don't go too far. I came to you voluntarily, to challenge you because I thought highly of you. Do you really think you're some unparalleled genius, superior to me? Shen Muhan sneered in disdain. You're right. My boss is 1,000 times better than you. You're not even worthy of carrying her shoes. As the world's #1 Lu Miao fan, Shen Muhan thought, 1. Lu Miao was the #1 genius in the universe. 2. Lu Miao would always be the strongest. 3. Lu Miao was always right. If Huang Zihao came to question Lu Miao, he would be walking right into his gun. He swore to protect his boss's reputation. He would never allow anyone to provoke and slander him in public. Huang Zihao sneered. You're just a boastful person. I think you're afraid of losing to me and being exposed as a fake genius, so you don't dare to accept my challenge. I've seen many people like you. Shen Muhan instantly stood up and raised his leg to rush forward to fight with him. Lu Miao pulled his collar with 2 fingers and said slowly. You can challenge me after you win the Triwizard Tournament. Chapter 74. 74, Something Happened. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 74. Something Happened. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Huang Zihao gritted his teeth. Alright, just you wait. He really didn't regard those trashes who participated in the competition as his opponent. After saying those harsh words, he left. Bastard. Shen Muhan was furious. Boss, if you have the chance, you must teach him a lesson. He despises people who excessively admire foreign things. Lu Miao leaned on Su Mo's shoulder, feeling lethargic. Low battery, self-preservation comes first. Seeing this, Shen Muhan immediately forgot about Huang Zihao and rushed to the cafeteria. Inside the cafeteria, students from the other 2 schools were also present. Since Lu Miao entered the cafeteria, she was observed from all angles without any blind spots. After returning to class after lunch, people came to challenge her one after another. Lu Miao was annoyed and asked for leave from Li Sihai, then slipped to the field alone. This was why she didn't like to be high-profile and didn't like to be exposed by the media. She only wanted to keep a low profile and do what she wanted to do. She did not want to become a celebrity and be surrounded by people. Thinking about the upcoming 3-day-long competition, she felt a headache coming on. Fortunately, after familiarizing herself with the surroundings in the morning and taking a break, the Triwizard Tournament began in the afternoon. The competition was not a conventional knowledge test but consisted of 3 parts. The first round was about memory. The rules were simple. In 2 hours, the computer would randomly display countless numbers. The participants had to remember these numbers in order. The top 5 students from each grade who remembered the most and were the most accurate would enter the next round. There were no classes in school these few days. They could watch the competition or study in class. Lu Miao was not interested in watching and continued to do her homework in class. Shen Muhan was chatting with the people at the competition venue while broadcasting the live broadcast to Lu Miao. After the first round of the competition ended, Zhenhai High School had a total of 6 people from the 3 grades, Fengqing High School had 5 people, and Jiangqing Experimental had 4 people. However, there were still 2 more rounds to go, and the outcome had yet to be decided. The next day's competition was the Beehive Maze. It was said that this project combined mathematics, physics, space, and other fields. No one in the world had successfully challenged it. It covered an area of more than 900 square meters and was made up of 127 equal dot-sided hexagons. On each side of the hexagon was a door that could be pushed open. The participants had to enter the Beehive Maze with their eyes blindfolded within the stipulated 2 hours. They had to obtain the tokens hidden in the 4 corners before successfully leaving the maze. Under normal circumstances, walking through the Beehive Maze was already very difficult, not to mention that they had to cover their eyes. After a morning of competition, both the first and second-year students were completely defeated. Not a single person succeeded, and even those who managed to obtain the emblem were few and far between. True to its legendary reputation, it could be considered a super-difficult mode. Lu Miao sat in the classroom, focused on reading and doing exercises. Shen Muhao leaned over from the side, bored, and reached for the book next to her, flipping through its pages. When he saw the title on the cover, he couldn't help but curse, F***ck, F***ck, F, boss, this is a university third-year textbook. Yes. Lu Miao answered casually while doing the questions. Shen Muhan cried. Boss, what kind of monster are you? Jumping directly from the high school first year to the third year was one thing, but now she was already self-studying the material for university third year, bypassing both the first and second years. Her learning speed was simply inhuman. In comparison, he was simply a good 4 nothing. Read more books and do more questions. Lu Miao did not even raise her head and said directly. Yes, sir. Shen Muhan immediately turned around and prepared to return to his seat to study. The phone in his pocket rang several times. He took out his phone and opened the screen. He saw that his classmates who were watching the competition on the field had sent him more than 10 messages. F***ck, something happened. Our senior students participating in the competition got injured and fainted. Don't know who attacked them from behind, their heads covered in blood. It's so tragic. Shen Muhan immediately told Lu Miao about it. Lu Miao frowned. She had only heard that some countries like to secretly attack the people who had the most potential to win the championship in other countries in order to win the final victory in sports events. Letting others get injured and withdraw from the competition could reduce the number of strong competitors and guarantee that they would win the championship. She did not expect that someone would use such underhanded methods in a small competition between a few schools. The other students who had not gone to watch the competition also gathered around. Lu Miao put down the textbook and exercises in her hands and stood up. Let's go take a look. The group of people immediately stood up and went out with her. The beehive maze was built in the school field. When they arrived, the surroundings were already crowded with people. The competition was paused. The ambulance had not arrived yet, and in the midst of the crowd, the injured student remained unconscious. The school doctor administered a hemostatic agent and proceeded to provide basic bandaging. On the ground, there were numerous blood-stained bandages discarded, creating a particularly disturbing sight. Beside them, Principal Su and the teacher of the Year 3 experimental class wore grim expressions. Meanwhile, the participants from other schools, as well as their principals and teachers, showed no concern, appearing indifferent and unconcerned. More and more blood-stained bandages appeared on the ground. The wound is too serious. The hemostatic medicine won't stop it. The school doctor turned his head anxiously and saw that the school bus was not far away. He immediately said, "We can't wait for the ambulance. Hurry up and get some students to help carry him to the school bus over there." Lu Miao quickly made her way through the crowd, mixing in with a few other students. While no one was paying attention, she poked an acupoint on the back of the injured student's head with her index finger to stop the bleeding. Then, when she raised her hand, she quickly grabbed his wrist. After making sure that there were no other injuries on his body and that his life was no longer in danger after the bleeding stopped, she quietly retreated into the crowd. A group of people carried him into the car in a hurry. The form teacher of the high school experimental class and the school doctor followed the car to the hospital. On the field, the crowd did not disperse. Principal Su said in a deep voice, "Whoever was behind this attack, I urge you to step forward voluntarily. It would be best for everyone's sake if we can avoid an unpleasant investigation." It was an utter humiliation that one of their own students had been injured by someone's covert actions within their own school. Principal Su, there is currently no evidence to prove that it was another student who did this. It might not be appropriate to casually suspect other students, responded the principal from Fengqing No. The 50th High School. Principal Su said, "If it wasn't someone else, do you mean to say he hit himself in the head like that?" The principal of Jiangqing Experimental School pondered for a moment and said, "The competition rules involved blindfolded challenges, so perhaps he accidentally bumped into something. It doesn't seem to be a serious injury." Chapter 75. 75, Lu Miao, Goddess of War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 75. Lu Miao, Goddess of War. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Lu Miao pursed her lips slightly. Doesn't seem to be a serious injury. The wound was so deep that even the hemostatic medicine could not stop it. If she had not helped him stop the bleeding just now, he might have lost his life by the time he arrived at the hospital. Principal, I remember that there should be surveillance cameras in this project, right? Only then did the surrounding students see her. They took a step back and made way for her. Principal Su sighed. The surveillance cameras are broken. The surveillance cameras were fine during the morning competition between the first and third years. However, when the third-year competition started in the afternoon, the surveillance cameras suddenly broke down. Before the technicians could identify any issues, an urgent call rang from the center of the competition area. It was originally set up as an abort device for all participating students. If anyone wanted to quit the competition midway, they could press the emergency call button, and a teacher would come to escort them out. Little did they expect that it would be used for a life-saving situation. What a coincidence. Lu Miao's eyelids twitched slightly as she looked at the remaining participants. This student, your school is responsible for the entire surveillance footage, the principal of Fengqing Noel High School reminded. Principal Su's face darkened. This was what made him the angriest and most aggrieved. The venue was theirs, and the surveillance cameras were their responsibility. He had no reason to suspect that someone else had tampered with it. He couldn't call the police. With such an incident occurring during their first joint competition, the news had spread far and wide, making people hesitant to participate in the future. The reputation of all three schools had been significantly affected. If there was evidence, it would be easier to handle. But without it, they would have to bear this hidden loss themselves. The principal of the Jiangqing Experiment School tried to smooth things over. We are also deeply regretful that such an outstanding student got injured during the competition. We will provide appropriate compensation. Since we can't find any evidence now, why don't we wait for that student to wake up and ask him what's going on? The principal of Fengqing Noel High School nodded. I have no objections, but what about the competition? You all know that the students in their final year are approaching the college entrance examination, and every day is crucial for them. We can't afford to waste any more time here, the principal of Jiangqing Experimental School agreed. The principal of the Jiangqing Experimental School nodded in agreement. That's right. The students of Zhenhai High School can still go back to their classrooms for lessons, but what about the students of our school? They couldn't just wait here and do nothing. How about this? Since the injured student cannot continue the competition, and considering that Zhenhai High School has only one student from the final round, we can select another participant from the previously eliminated contestants to continue competing with the remaining participants. Principal Su, what do you think? Suggested the principal of Jiangqing Experimental School. Principal Su remained silent with a composed expression. The fact that their student had stood out among so many contestants meant they were the most exceptional and had the highest chance of winning the championship. Allowing eliminated contestants to participate seemed fair and considerate on the surface, but it was, in fact, pitting their most outstanding participant against Zhenhai High School's relatively weaker eliminated contestant. This way, they would be able to ensure that they could win the second round and enter the next round. This was clearly the greatest injustice to the students of Zhenhai High School. The other students who were watching on the field naturally thought of it as well, and they were all indignant. This isn't fair. Isn't it just competing with a disadvantage? That's right. Isn't this clearly bullying our school? Despite their internal rivalries within different classes at school, they remained united when facing external challenges. The principal of Fengqing No. 1 High School didn't seem to mind and responded generously, if you have more outstanding students who can participate, it's also acceptable to us. His words made it sound as if they were being unreasonable. It was clear that they had bullied them first, causing harm to their student, and now they were playing the victim. Principal Su had never felt so frustrated before. The onlooking students on the sports field also felt deeply frustrated. It was not just an insult to their school anymore, it was an insult to every student at Jinhai High School. Mocking their large school for not being able to find a participant who could compete with them on an equal footing. Wait, more outstanding participants. Wasn't the most outstanding student in their school. Everyone's eyes instantly turned to Lu Miao with sparkling eyes, looking at her expectantly. Lu Miao was a super genius recognized by international academic experts. Although the other students were also outstanding, in front of a true genius like her, they were simply not enough. If Lu Miao was willing to participate, she would definitely be able to slaughter them all. Principal Su naturally thought of Lu Miao immediately. However, he knew better than anyone else that Lu Miao did not care about Qingbei University's recommendation at all. If she wanted to go, there was no need for her to come to their school before school started. This was also the reason why he did not force Lu Miao to participate in the competition when she refused to. Moreover, Lu Miao did not like such high-profile events. Previously, she had already given him face by agreeing to give a speech at the freshman meeting. This time, he could not force her again. He sighed helplessly and was about to resign himself to fate and take this loss. He would randomly find an eliminated contestant. Lu Miao said slowly. Principal Su, can I be a substitute? Principal Su did not expect Lu Miao to step forward. The grievance in his heart seemed to have found an exit in an instant. He hurriedly nodded. Of course. Ah, that's great. Lu Miao, you can do it. Lu Miao is the best. Go, Lu Miao. Lu Miao is the best. Go, Lu Miao. All the students on the field instantly cheered. The cheers almost broke through the clouds. At this moment, everyone's blood boiled. It was as if Lu Miao had become their goddess of war, bringing all their hopes to slash through thorns and thorns, killing the other party until there was nothing left. Helpless, Lu Miao raised her hand and pressed down lightly. All the students on the field instantly shut up and fell silent. I have a request. Tell me. Principal Su nodded. If I participate and win the championship, earning the opportunity for direct admission to Qingbei University, I request that this admission be given to the injured student. Lu Miao said. Heh, you're too arrogant, aren't you? Someone who doesn't even dare to participate in a competition, yet talks about giving away an admission opportunity. It's truly laughable, mocked a male student from Fenching No. 1 High School. Yeah, I've heard that you only entered Jinhai High School because your family donated a building to the school. Those awards of yours were all bought, added a disdainful girl next to him. Jinhai High School's online forum was not restricted, so these rumors couldn't escape their attention. Young lady, you shouldn't build your reputation like this. Pretending to be someone you're not will only invite disaster, jeered another male student. Chapter 76. 76, Splashing It Straight at Lu Miao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 76. Splashing It Straight at Lu Miao. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Young lady, that's not how you build your image. Pretending to be someone you're not will bring down the thunder, another male student jeered. The principals of Fengcheng Noel High School and Jiangqing Experimental School only watched from the side and did not have any intention of stopping them. Lu Miao did not mind. She just looked up at them. Can I? The principal of Fengcheng Noel High School looked at her curiously and nodded. Sure. He had heard numerous rumors about Lu Miao, some true and some false, making it difficult to discern the truth. He was also curious to know if this so-called super genius, who had been hyped up by Principal Su, was genuine or not. Lu Miao's participation in the competition was confirmed. All the contestants knew about the competition before they participated in the competition. They had specially familiarized themselves with the training. After a discussion, they decided to give her an afternoon to familiarize herself with the preparations. The rematch was scheduled for the next morning. The crowd dispersed, and all the students went back to study. Lu Miao bypassed the others and went straight to the surveillance room. Inside the surveillance room, technicians were working diligently to repair and identify the cause of the malfunctioning surveillance system. I have checked all the cameras in the maze, and they are all intact without any signs of deliberate damage. The main server cannot be accessed at the moment. It will take at least 2 days to repair. Only after the server is fixed can we determine the cause, the technician said with a tinge of guilt. Approaching the keyboard, Lu Miao began typing rapidly, and moments later, the sound of the server booting up filled the room. The technicians beside her were completely astonished by her actions. How did she fix it? They had been struggling with it for quite a while, and 2 days was their estimated timeframe for repairs. Yet, this little girl managed to fix it in just a few minutes. With the server repaired, Lu Miao accessed the main disk and carefully examined the surveillance footage. It abruptly stopped 5 minutes before the incident involving the injured student. Prior to that, several other participants in the maze were in proximity to him. Based solely on their positions, it was impossible to determine who was responsible. The timing and location were perfectly controlled, indicating that this was no accident. Lu Miao pursed her lips and left the surveillance room, heading downstairs back to the classroom. Seeing that she had returned, a group of students immediately surrounded her. "Boss, where did you go? I'm telling you, it must be that Huang guy who sabotaged it from behind. He came earlier, showing off and acting all superior. Clearly, he's not a good person. Be careful of him in the competition," Shen Mushuan anxiously said. The other students around him also agreed. He must be afraid that he wouldn't win the championship, so he deliberately eliminated his most powerful opponent. Lu Miao lightly tapped her fingertips on the desk. The surveillance was deliberately tampered with. Someone destroyed it from the outside at the right moment while another person took the opportunity to act inside the maze. It requires precise coordination and leaving no traces. This is not something that can be done by a single person. Huang Zihao is indeed arrogant and conceited, but he is also prideful and upright. If he dislikes someone or feels challenged by them, he will directly confront that person without resorting to underhanded tactics from behind. The surrounding people fell into deep thought after hearing this. The hospital soon sent news that the injured student had woken up. However, due to the concussion, he had temporary amnesia. He couldn't remember what had happened in the maze. He also did not remember how he was injured. He wasn't sure when he would be able to recover. It might be a few days, or a few months. Without evidence, the person involved had forgotten everything, and they could not call the police. At this point, it seemed that Zhenhai High School could only accept their misfortune. For a while, the atmosphere in the entire school became somewhat oppressive. In the afternoon, Li Sihai came to the classroom to find Lu Miao and took her to the principal's office. All the other students had gone through training and walked through the maze. Although they knew that Lu Miao was a genius, they were still worried. The two of them provided Lu Miao with a stack of maze structure materials for her to review. After leaving the principal's office, Lu Miao walked directly towards the school gate. She had only taken a few steps when she heard a voice from behind saying, "Lu Miao." An unfamiliar male voice sounded behind her. Lu Miao turned around and saw a boy standing behind her. As if afraid of being seen by others, her face turned pale and she looked around nervously. After making sure that there was no one else around, she quickly walked to Lu Miao. Lu Miao had an impression of him. She had seen him on the field before. He was a participant in the Jiangqing Experimental School Year 3. Because all the contestants had name tags on their bodies, she glanced at Chu Qingyang. "Is there something you need?" The boy put something into her hand and whispered, "Be careful of Han Fei from Fengqing Noel High School." Without waiting for Lu Miao to speak, he turned around and left. Lu Miao opened her hand, and a small black memory card lay in her palm. It was probably because he had pinched it for too long that the memory card still had the residual warmth of his hand. Han Fei from Fengqing High School. Lu Miao narrowed her eyes and thought for a moment. He was a very inconspicuous boy. He was shorter than the average boy, had a short buzz cut, and wore a pair of black dot-rimmed glasses. He was wearing a simple gray T-dot shirt and washed jeans. He looked very honest and timid. He stood silently in the corner and almost did not have a sense of existence. If it weren't for the competition name tag in front of him, she might not have noticed him at all. A student from Jiangqing Experimental School came to remind her to pay attention to the people from Fengqing Noel High School. She looked down at the memory card in her hand and put it away. Because she had been delayed in the principal's office for a while, she returned to the Gu residence a little late. Gu Jinsi waited for her at the door every day. When he saw her return, he immediately went forward to take her bag with a smile. Second sister. In law, why don't I pick you up after school? I don't have anything to do at home anyway. I guarantee that it'll be safe and fast. No need. You can stay at home and study. Lu Miao immediately refused. She already had enough headaches with Gu Shiyu and Shen Muheo occasionally going crazy and picking her up in luxury cars. If Gu Jingxixi got involved as well, who knows what kind of rumors would spread. While Gu Jinsi was trying hard to persuade her, Lu Miao and Gu Ziheng turned and entered the door together. Gu Ziheng happened to be holding a bowl of freshly cooked porridge as he came out from inside, intending to give it to Gu Xingyu. The three of them collided, and the hot porridge in the bowl spilled straight towards Lu Miao. Chapter 77. 77. The hunting game begins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 77. The hunting game begins. Gu Ziheng's expression changed. He quickly pushed Lu Miao away with one hand and tried to turn the porridge bowl towards him with the other. The porridge in the bowl instantly splashed onto his hands and body. At the same time, Gu Jinsi flew over and shielded Lu Miao behind him. After he steadied himself, he checked Lu Miao up and down to make sure that she was fine. He turned his head angrily and said to Gu Ziheng, "Did you do it on purpose?" Gu Ziheng frowned. "I didn't. You deliberately waited until my sister. Law returned to send it, and you dare to say it wasn't intentional. Gu Ziheng, let me tell you, as long as I'm here, you won't harm my sister. Law. Gu Jinsi was like an angry puppy, desperately protecting his territory. Gu Ziheng knew that even if he explained the situation regarding Xingyu, they probably wouldn't believe him. He pursed his lips, apologized, and then turned and walked away. "Humph, you finally admitted it. I knew it." Gu Jinsi snorted coldly and said confidently to Lu Miao. "Second sister. Law, don't worry. I will definitely protect you." Lu Miao looked at Gu Ziheng's back and did not say anything. The two of them returned to her room. Lu Miao checked Gu Jinsi's homework daily and corrected his mistakes. This guy had improved a lot recently, and his wrong answers were almost non-existent. His learning progress had caught up with the normal curriculum pace for the first year of high school. After sending him away, Lu Miao opened her computer and inserted the storage card into the card reader. She found the recording on the card and played it. "I have successfully infiltrated the surveillance system of Zhendai High School. You can monitor the situation inside the maze in real time from the computer. The virus is already stored in the email, and all you have to do is wait by the computer. When we have all reached a similar distance, send the virus from the email to the surveillance room's email. After successfully sending it, call my phone and it will vibrate 3 times to notify me. Are you sure this method will work? Even if I successfully cut off the surveillance and notify you, how can you guarantee that you'll be able to find Cui Wenjia? You don't have to worry about that. I've already gotten someone to place a tracker on him. It can track his location in real time. When you successfully cut off the surveillance, I'll take off my blindfold and find him. There are so many contestants. Why did you spend so much effort targeting Cui Wenjia? I think Huang Zihao is smarter than him. I did some investigation, and he performed exceptionally well in spatial domain training. He is also the most likely candidate to win the championship in the senior high school category. Spatial manipulation is my weak point, and I have to eliminate him to ensure my own advancement. You should be careful and don't cause any harm. Don't worry, I have studied medical books specifically to know where to strike. The rest of his words were all about the details. Lu Miao turned off the recording. Indeed, it was similar to what she had predicted. There must be someone working with the inside. To think that they would go to such lengths, even resorting to underhanded methods to eliminate their competition, all for a spot in a prestigious university like Qingbei. Han Fei's silence flashed past her eyes, and then she thought of his calm voice in the recording. Truly, one cannot judge a book by its cover. However, where did Chu Qingyang get the recording from? Why did he help her? Who was the person talking to Han Fei in the recording? The person seemed to have deliberately lowered his voice, and his voice sounded very distorted. What was the relationship between Chu Qingyang and them? Who was the real mastermind behind this? Is it possible that they were all players and the real mastermind was hiding behind them, waiting for his chance? Regardless, no one involved in this can escape. Lu Miao lowered her eyes slightly and transferred the recording to her phone. The principal gave her a lot of information about the structure of the beehive maze. Actually, the most difficult part of this competition was blindfolding. Once blindfolded, people would completely lose their sense of direction. Not only would they be unable to walk in a straight line, but many would struggle to differentiate between east, west, north, and south. To successfully complete this challenge, one needed to memorize the entire maze structure, possess exceptional mental calculation skills, spatial awareness, and a sense of direction. Calculating the optimal route in the shortest possible time, mentally simulating a real-time route map, and then accurately following that map using strong spatial awareness and direction skills were crucial. All three were indispensable. Those with a weak sense of direction, even if they calculated the optimal route, might be completely lost in the maze after taking one or two steps. Lu Miao was not arrogant. She carefully read through the information that the principal had given her. The match was on the morning of the next day. When Lu Miao arrived at the school, the competition had yet to start, but the field was already packed with people. All the students in Zhenhai High School were waiting for her to appear. Shen Muhan stood at the edge of the field and noticed her immediately. Immediately, they rushed forward excitedly. "Boss, you're here." Lu Miao nodded, but before she could take 2 steps, someone bumped into her from behind. She steadied her body and turned around to see Lu Xiyu standing there looking at her helplessly. "What are you doing here?" Shen Muhan said fiercely as he rushed up to shield Lu Miao behind him. Lu Xiyu looked aggrieved. "I'm sorry. I know you don't like me. However, this competition concerns the honor of our school. Please believe me." As she spoke, she took out a folded paper from her pocket and opened it. The structure and route of the labyrinth were drawn on the folded paper. This is the route and some things to take note of based on yesterday's experience. I hope it will be of help to you. Shen Muhan took the blueprint first, half believing it. Lu Xiyu had indeed advanced from the first round of the competition and had participated in the beehive maze yesterday. Although she didn't advance in the end, she did have some experience. However, when did this woman become so kind? Could it be that her sense of collective honor suddenly burst forth, deciding to turn over a new leaf? After carefully checking several times, she found that it was indeed just an ordinary blueprint without anything else. Lu Xiyu looked at Lu Miao sincerely and said, "Miao Miao, I really didn't mean anything else. I'm also a member of Zhenhai High School, and I hope our school can win the competition. Good luck to you." After saying that, she turned around and left. Shen Muhan watched her leave with a puzzled expression. Worried that there might be some virus on the blueprint, he decided to hold the blueprint himself and show it to Lu Miao. "Boss, the competition is about to start. Take a look and gain more experience." Lu Miao looked at the blueprint in front of her. Lu Xiu was definitely not that kind-hearted. The corners of his lips curled up imperceptibly. She waved her hand, turned around, and walked straight in the direction of the maze. She was going to start catching people. The hunting game had officially begun. Half an hour later, all the contestants were ready. Lu Miao lifted her eyelids slightly and swept her gaze across all the contestants as if nothing had happened. Chu Qingyang's face was pale and his mind was extremely tense. His entire person looked extremely stiff, giving off a weak, pitiful, and helpless appearance. Chapter 78 78, 1000. Your cunning fox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 78 1000. Your cunning fox. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Han Fei changed into a simple white T-shirt, still wearing the same jeans. The expression in his eyes was hidden behind his black-framed glasses. Plain and unremarkable, he was still the most inconspicuous person in the crowd. Huang Zihao, on the other hand, had a face full of arrogance and disdain, like a proud peacock, afraid that people wouldn't notice him displaying his feathers. When he saw her looking at him, he even gave her a provocative glance. The remaining girl was currently turning her head to the teacher in charge of the team and having a final exchange with him in a low voice. Everyone looked completely innocent. The principal held the loudspeaker and repeatedly reminded him that if anything went wrong, he must press the alarm immediately. After explaining the things to take note of again, he announced the start of the competition. The 5 of them were taken to different entrances of the maze and blindfolded. When the competition began, Lu Miao leisurely pushed open the door of the maze in front of her and walked in. Then, she accurately opened the next door and entered the next maze. In the chaotic maze, she walked in the direction of his target without any obstacles as if he was taking a stroll in a courtyard. In just a short 10 minutes, she had successfully obtained 2 of the 4 location tokens. On the big screen in the field, the students who were watching watched as Lu Miao broke through the maze like a hot knife through butter. Their cheers were like a tsunami. The group of people shouted and hugged each other while laughing. The contestants in the maze heard the cheers outside. Although they could not see it, they could guess that Lu Miao had successfully obtained the token. Lu Miao curled her lips and took off her blindfold. She took out a small round piece from the corner of her clothes and threw it at her feet. This thing was the mini tracker that was stuck to the corner of Lu Xiu's clothes when she bumped into her previously. The blueprint was just to confuse them. With her personality, after she lost the competition, she would definitely wish that the whole world would fail with her. How could she be kind enough to help her? She knew that Lu Xiu would stir up trouble, but she didn't expect that she would collude with other schools. With a flash, she quickly turned around and entered the maze on the other side. She began to count down silently in her heart. 15 seconds later, a series of extremely light footsteps came from the other side of the maze. The sound of the maze door being pushed open rang out. Seeing the empty maze, the person was obviously stunned. His breathing instantly became much heavier. Lu Miao quickly pushed open the maze door in front of her and saw that Han Fei was holding a semi-circular pillar as thick as an arm. He was bending over to pick up the circular tracker on the ground. Without waiting for him to turn around, Lu Miao dashed forward like a bolt of lightning, raised her hand, and struck the back of his neck. Han Fei fell to the ground before he could make a sound. Lu Miao stepped forward and looked at the semi-circular pillar in his hand. Based on the material and shape, one glance was enough to tell that it was taken from a pillar in the maze. No wonder she couldn't find the weapon that injured that student. He reached into Han Fei's pocket and took out his phone. He tapped on the screen and tapped on it quickly. The lock password was unlocked. Leaning against the wall of the maze, she leisurely flipped through the things inside. 2 minutes later, another burst of footsteps could be heard. Lu Miao raised her eyebrows slightly. The real prey was finally going to take the bait. The maze door in front of her was pushed open. Chu Qingyang's pale face appeared at the door. When he met Lu Miao's eyes that were smiling but not smiling, his face instantly turned even paler. He was so confused that he stammered, When I was passing by earlier, I thought I heard the sound of something falling to the ground. I've been worried that Han Fei did something to you again. It's just that my sense of direction is really bad. I only found this place now. I'm relieved to see that you're fine. As he spoke, he glanced at Han Fei who was lying on the ground and asked nervously, what happened to him? Why don't we press the emergency bell? Although he was bad, it wouldn't be good if something happened to him. Don't worry, he's only temporarily unconscious. Lu Miao said calmly. Chu Qingyang looked at the surveillance camera. Then I'll take my leave first. As he spoke, he lifted his leg and was about to return to the maze he was originally in. Lu Miao lifted her leg and hooked the corner of the door with the tip of her foot. The maze door was instantly closed with a bang. Chu Qingyang turned to look at her. Lu Miao, what do you mean by this? Lu Miao smiled. You gave Han Fei the virus to attack the surveillance system, didn't you? I don't know why you would think that. If it was really me, why would I take the risk to remind you? Chu Qingyang clenched his fists tightly as his voice trembled. The third party benefits from the fight between the snipe and the clam. Lu Miao shrugged. I don't know why you would think that way. If it were really me, why would I risk myself to give you a hint? Chu Qingyang clenched his fist at his side, his voice trembling. Lu Miao shrugged her shoulders and said, when two quarrel, the third wins. Chu Qingyang argued, the school will never allow the same thing to happen twice. If the surveillance had problems like it did yesterday, the principal would have sent someone to rescue us in the shortest possible time. This project would also be halted due to its high risk. What benefits could I possibly gain from it other than wasting my time? Lu Miao nodded. That's right. The Beehive Maze project will be halted. From the very beginning, your goal was not to win the maze competition, but to stop and change the event. I've checked Han Fei's information. He knows nothing about electronic information and hacking skills. It's impossible for him to invent such a virus. As for you, you once took part in the amateur hacker competition under the alias of the Chuyang, and your performance was not bad. Previously, your performance in the maze training was the worst among all the third-year students. Therefore, before the competition began, you had already planned everything, Takin's advantage of Han Fei's character weakness, pretending to be a mysterious person, sending him the virus, and teaching him how to use it. First, he would use Han Fei to get rid of Cui Wenjia, who had the strongest sense of space. After immoing that Han Fei had done it for the first time, the school couldn't stop the maze replacement project immediately. Then, he hacked into Han Fei's phone with a virus and recorded the conversation between him and someone else. Even if the substitute isn't me, you'll find the substitute and give him this recording. Regardless of whether he handed it over to the teacher or deliberately went to the maze to find Han Fei for revenge, this project would definitely be stopped. Han Fei would also be disqualified, killing two birds with one stone. Chu Qingyang's face had turned a ghastly pale, and he said bitterly, these are just your personal speculations. I was merely acting out of good intentions when I tried to warn you. I never expected you to think of me this way. I must have meddled too much. Chu, Qingyang, you are both cunning foxes. Why are you still acting in front of Lu Miao? Waved the phone in her hand. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. Han Fei's phone has the virus records that you sent him through email and the records of how you taught him how to use it. I've already traced your IP address. Is there anything else you want to deny? Chapter 79. 79, Max Level Boss Killing Everyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 79. Max Level Boss Killing Everyone. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Chu Qingyang looked at the phone in her hand and clenched his fists. His body, which had been cowering, slowly straightened up. The bitterness and cowardice on his face disappeared. He looked up at her and sneered. I underestimated you. He had been acting like a coward to make people feel that he was not a threat and make his report more credible. He had calculated everything except for Lu Miao's train of thought. Under normal circumstances, when one received the reminder and evidence from him, they would definitely be grateful to him and would never doubt him. Lu Miao, on the other hand, pointed all the blame at him. This kind of thinking was completely illogical. Yes, I designed all of this from the beginning to the end. I sent the virus to Han Fei and taught him how to use it. I thought I did a perfect job with that virus. How did you crack it and track my IP address so quickly? Chu Qingyang pursed his lips and asked unwillingly. Lu Miao replied, I didn't crack it. Chu Qingyang was stunned. What do you mean? All is fair in war. Lu Miao smiled. But it doesn't matter. I have evidence now. As she spoke, she turned the phone screen in her hand towards Chu Qingyang. Looking at the recording function on the screen, Chu Qingyang's face turned ashen. In other words, as long as he refused to admit it, Lu Miao would not be able to do anything to him. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew that he couldn't beat Lu Miao, he really wanted to hit her now. He held back the blood in his chest and tried to take a deep breath. I just want to know what I did wrong to make you suspect me. Lu Miao curled her lips. Finding me is your biggest mistake. All her answers are so infuriating, making his blood boil. I was too confident. Chu Qingyang mocked himself, the winner takes all. Now that you have all the evidence, what do you want? Lu Miao saved the recording. I want you to confess what you did in front of everyone. Chu Qingyang gritted his teeth. If he did that, it would mean that his reputation was completely ruined. However, he also knew that if he rejected, Lu Miao would also choose to make it public. By then, his reputation would be even worse. His expression instantly became withered. I understand. Also, don't mention anything about me. The surveillance camera will be restored soon. Go back to your original position immediately. After saying that, Lu Miao picked up Han Fei from the ground with one hand and quickly walked to the other side. All of these events that took place inside the maze, though they sound like they lasted a long time, actually only took a short 1 or 2 minutes. At the same time, on the field outside the maze, all the students' eyes were fixed on the big screen. For some reason, Lu Miao suddenly started to walk in circles. It was as if she had completely lost her sense of direction. The students present couldn't help but feel anxious. They hurriedly turned their heads to look at the other contestants. The others were just like Lu Miao. For some reason, they kept walking in circles. It was probably really difficult in the maze, especially when they were blindfolded. It was normal to lose one's sense of direction. The teachers from Jiangqing Experimental and Fengqing Noel High School heaved a sigh of relief. They had thought that Lu Miao was invincible, but it seemed that she was just so. It was similar to their students. The 2 tokens they found previously were probably just lucky. In fact, what they didn't know was that Lu Miao had intercepted Han Fei's virus with the timer program he had made last night and then intercepted a small part of the surveillance video of them searching for their way in the maze and played it on loop. It would recover in a few minutes. Just as everyone was having their own thoughts, the people on the big screen finally began to move. Lu Miao did not hesitate at all. She pushed open door after door without any hesitation. While the others were still running around like headless flies, she successfully took the 4 tokens and walked out of the maze. What greeted her was a tsunami of cheers. Lu Miao had won, and she had completely crushed all of them with an absolute advantage. There were no more tokens in the maze, and the remaining people could only walk out empty-handed. Huang Zihao was the second to walk out, and the girl was the third. Lu Miao didn't hurt Han Fei too hard. When the surveillance returned to normal, he had already woken up. He stood in his own maze in a daze, clutching the bump on his forehead, not understanding what was going on. Because the screen showed that he had taken off his blindfold, he was disqualified on the spot. In the end, he and Chu Qingyang were brought out by their teacher. As they finally walked out of the maze, the principal was about to announce the advancement when a voice suddenly came from the loudspeaker in the field. "I've successfully hacked into Zhenhai High School's surveillance system. The computer can see the situation in the maze in real time." It was the recording that Chu Qingyang had given to Lu Miao. The field instantly fell silent. After listening to the recording, all the students and teachers of Zhenhai High School were furious. If Principal Su hadn't stopped them in front, they would have rushed over and beaten them up. "This is too much. This is clearly targeting our school. Bullying us. You have to give us an explanation." Han Fei felt as if he had been struck by lightning. How could this call be recorded? Frantically, he tried to defend himself. "No, it wasn't me. Principal Tian, you have to believe me. Someone is deliberately fabricating this recording to smear me and prevent me from participating in the competition to secure their admission. Yes, that's right. Look at the bump on my head. Someone knocked me out in the maze just now." Han Fei pointed at the egg-sized bump on his forehead and showed it to the crowd eagerly to prove his innocence. After all, he was a student of Fengcheng Noel High School, so Principal Tian of Fengcheng Noel High School naturally sided with him. He said to Principal Su in a deep voice, "Principal Su, shouldn't you give us an explanation for this matter?" Principal Su remained calm. "It's just a bump on the head. Previously, when a student from our school was injured in the head, didn't you all ask me to let the matter rest and not pursue the matter?" They were using their previous words to shut their mouths. Principal Tian could not help but choke. Next to him, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and pointed at Lu Miao angrily. "It's her. She must have hurt me from behind. She was afraid that I would win the competition and ruin her genius halo, so she deliberately attacked me." Her flustered expression and sharp tongue were no longer the same as his usual taciturn and inconspicuous appearance. Before Lu Miao could say anything, Shen Muhan, Su Mo, and the surrounding students immediately retorted. "He, who doesn't know how to spout lies. You accuse my boss of hurting you, but I can just as well say that it was you who harmed Shui Wenjia yesterday." Chapter 80. 80. Heaven. Defying level. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 80. Heaven. Defying level. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Just how blind is our boss to envy someone like you, with such mediocre intelligence that couldn't even find a single token in the second round. We saw it clearly from the surveillance cameras outside just now. After Lu Miao entered the maze, she went straight for the token and had no interaction with you in the maze at all. Han Fei wanted to refute, convinced that she had tampered with the surveillance. But he realized that he had also tampered with it, and if they investigated further, he probably wouldn't be able to escape. He had no choice but to swallow his words again and stubbornly insist, "It was her, I saw it." Principal Tian paused for a moment. "Principal Su, no matter what, Fengcheng Noel High School will not pursue today's matter. This matter will end here." Implicitly, this statement directly assigned all the blame to Lu Miao. Yet, he even acted as if he had made a great sacrifice and displayed great magnanimity. Indeed, like principal, like student. All the students who were watching nearby cursed Principal Tian in their hearts, shameless. "I think you're just feeling guilty." Principal Su immediately became furious. As the two principals were about to start arguing, Lu Miao stood quietly on the side, her eyelids slightly lifted as she glanced at Chu Qingyang. Chu Qingyang had initially wanted to struggle a bit more, but when he thought about the recording in Lu Miao's hands, he gritted his teeth and reluctantly stepped forward. The recording that played on the broadcast earlier is real. I recorded it and sent the virus to him, Chu Qingyang confessed. Han Fei immediately panicked and denied, "You're talking nonsense." Chu Qingyang looked down at Lu Miao's eyes and sighed in his heart. He took out his mobile phone as if he had accepted his fate. He presented all the evidence of his communication with Han Fei. Han Fei was completely dumbfounded. He never imagined that the person who had befriended him on the online forum and orchestrated everything behind his back would turn out to be Chu Qingyang, the timid and cowardly Chu Qingyang. The principal, teachers, and students of the Jiangqing Experiment School were all stunned. Chu Qingyang's timid and fearful appearance had long been deeply rooted in the people's hearts. If he hadn't admitted it today, they probably wouldn't have known that he would do such a thing in this lifetime. With all the witnesses and evidence, it was meaningless for Han Fei to deny it now. The words spoken by Principal Tian felt like a crisp slap, hitting himself hard in the face. His old face was about to be smashed, so how could he utter a single word for Han Fei's defense? Both of them had their qualifications for the competition revoked, and they were held responsible for all of Cui Wenjia's medical and emotional damages. In addition to that, both schools compensated Cui Wenjia separately. The students of Zhenhai High School were dissatisfied with this outcome. In the end, under everyone's strong protest and condemnation, the two schools had no choice but to expel them from the school. Things have finally settled down. In the second round of the senior high school group, Lu Miao and Huang Zihao, who was the first to exit the maze, advanced to the next round. As the crowd dispersed on the playground and they were heading back to their classrooms, Lu Miao intercepted Lu Siyu in the crowd. "Miao Miao, congratulations on successfully advancing to the third round." Lu Siyu looked at her with a smile. However, her hands clenched tightly at her side, her sharp nails almost piercing through her palms. Lu Miao raised her eyebrows. "I have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have obtained the evidence against Chu Qingyang's involvement in Han Fei's plans so quickly." Because she forbade Han Fei from exposing his original plot of locating and eliminating her, Lu Siyu, who was also involved with them, was not implicated when she confessed everything earlier. Upon hearing this, the smile on Lu Siyu's face froze, and she forced herself to maintain a smile. "Miao Miao, I don't understand what you're talking about. What evidence against Chu Qingyang? Didn't he stand up and admit to everything?" Lu Miao raised her hand and deliberately flipped a small black disc in front of her eyes. "It's okay if you don't understand. Just recognize this." Seeing the object between her fingers, Lu Siyu's pupils instantly contracted, and her heart seemed to stop. It was the tracker she had placed on Lu Miao's clothes when she bumped into her before the competition. Thinking about how Chu Qingyang and the others didn't implicate her when they confessed earlier, it was likely that Lu Miao didn't have any substantial evidence against her either. She quickly calmed down and said pitifully, "Miao Miao, I really don't know what this is, and I don't know what you're talking about. I'm very happy that you've advanced. If you still doubt me, then I'll stay away from you in the future." Lu Miao was not surprised that she refused to admit it. She nodded. "If you don't know, I can tell you. This is a tracker. Someone deliberately put it on me before the competition, but she refuses to admit it now. But it's okay. When I have time, I'll get this thing fingerprinted, and I'm sure we'll find her." With that, she patted Lu Siyu's shoulder. "Wait for good news from me." She never expected Lu Siyu to admit to it, but she wanted to deliver this message to make her worry every day, fearing that she would be discovered. She wanted to make her restless and sleepless at night. Compared to directly exposing her, this kind of torture would make her wish she was dead. Looking at her back view as she left, Lu Siyu was filled with fear and hatred. That thing was like a ticking time bomb in Lu Miao's hands. She did not know when it would explode. She could not sit still and wait for death. The final round of the Triwizard Tournament was a test of computational ability. The contestants needed to calculate the original height of the iron ball based on the sound of the falling iron ball behind them. After Lu Miao's fabulous performance yesterday, all the students at Shanghai High School were filled with unprecedented confidence. They looked at Lu Miao with a fanatical gaze. Meanwhile, the students from the other two schools stared at Lu Miao with their mouths agape. After witnessing Lu Miao's performance in the maze yesterday, they knew she was a genius, but they did not know she was that heaven-defying. Almost the second the iron ball landed, Lu Miao had already reported the correct answer. The entire process of the competition did not even take a second. Even before the referee could react, the match had already ended. At this moment, there was only one sentence in everyone's mind. Was this something a human can accomplish? Is she a human? This is an unfair fight between God and humans. Lu Miao's brain is a brain, while their brains aren't even worth a pile of tofu residue. Beside them, Huang Ziheo's expression went from shock to disbelief, then reluctantly accepting the truth, and finally, a sense of loss and dejection. It was incredibly remarkable. His fist clenched at his side, even though he had lost, he ultimately chose not to give up. They had 3 chances to listen to the sound, and he listened 3 times, successfully calculating the original height of the iron ball. As the competition ended, he walked straight up to Lu Miao, his gaze filled with complex emotions, and admitted with a sincere heart, "I lost."